Shalom, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.KosherTorah.com, bringing to you this new lesson, lesson number 5 in our series of the secret wisdom, the prophetic Kabbalah, of the biblical book of Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, written by none less than that wise man himself, Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, master of many talents, that guy. But anyway, when we're discussing here biblical mentality, all right, remember how different things were then than they are now. Different how? I'm about to give you a lesson in which I'm going to tell you how things are not different at all. But I just said they are different. So they are different and they're not different. What's going on here? And the answer is something very profound. Yeah, time marches on, as you all know. If you look at where you are today in life, it's not where you were a year ago, 10 years ago, or 50 years ago if you were around that long. But some things remain the same. And do you know what that is that mostly remains the same? If not you yourself, then us in general. Psychologically speaking, humanity as a whole, how much have we really changed? Psychologically speaking, even with all of our technological advancement, our scientific discoveries, our depth of understanding of the universe, of life, universe, and everything, inside ourselves, how different are we than people were 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, as far back as recorded history? Now, that's where you have to understand. Because psychologically speaking, it's a cycle. This is one of the things that I truly love about Jungian psychology. Because Carl Jung, he was kind of like, if you will allow me, one of us. This was a man who knew he had a psychic side, who saw the greater reality. And he would have been a mystic, meditator, experiencer kind of guy of a different persuasion if he lived, 1,000, 2,000 years ago, and he wasn't around today as a medical doctor and a psychiatrist looking to understand what's going on inside us. And by understanding what's going on inside of us, recognizing how we materialize that. And we create all kinds of images, symbols that we use to represent what's going on inside of us. Now, you all know this is true, and I'll prove it to you like this. How many of you today hold on to some kind of idea or ideal? How many of you have a political persuasion? How many of you have a favorite sports team and you root for the colors, or you root for the flag, or some other symbolic thing? How many isms do we attach ourselves to? For example, in the economic spheres today, we have capitalism, socialism, communism. And we sit and fight and argue and scream about these things. And in the end, what's it going to be? Because ultimately, with all these isms underlying them all, there is what? Us. We human beings. So no matter how different we are externally, I think we all know the common reality. We all bleed red blood. Okay, so technically we're all red in color. But that in and of itself is, again, a little bit more than a metaphor, but still a metaphor. But psychologically, no matter who you are, no matter where you are from, we all as human beings think very similar to one another, because there is a collective whole to all humanity. This is something that in psychology Jung would call the collective unconscious, or the objective psyche. In our Torah, Kabbalistic tradition, we say that all souls were included in part of the collective Adam. And so is it really a biblical idea that all humanity is one? Yeah, isn't that what it said in the beginning of the Bible? Let us make man in our image, and man is created in the image of God. Which man? Which Adam? Adam, mind you, remember, is male and female. Ladies, you're a part of Adam as much as any male is, equal part as well. So, who, where, what, why, how, differences. Differences are external. That's always the case. We all have different roles, different functions, different jobs in life. Even Jung will refer to what he calls the racial subdivisions within the collective unconscious. So underlying or complementary to our general humanity, certain people think in different ways. Clearly, Americans and Europeans think differently from one another, and I'm sure Chinese and Russians think differently from the others. Doesn't make one right, wrong, better, worse. It is unique. And in that respect, we still must recognize the underlying unity underlying it all. Now that is the biblical message. Now, hear now the words of King Solomon. Chapter 1 of Kohelet, verse 7. Very profound words. Now remember where Solomon's mentality is at this point. Remember, this is a man who knows the greater worlds. He interacts with them. He was master of both angelic and what we call daemonic or Shaddai forces. So he knew very well what was going on in the world. And he looked at the physicality of this world. And you want to know something? He could proverbially stroke his beard sitting on his throne in Jerusalem, saying, you know what? Thinking far ahead, King Solomon would have said, I suspect this world that we're living in is a matrix. And that it's operating according to a computerized program. And a lot of people suspect that kind of stuff today as in the movie. Well, I'm sure it's not exactly like in a movie, but Solomon saw the patterns. Solomon saw, and quote, the program of things. And this is where he's talking about, where he's coming from, what he's talking about now in Kohelet. Verse 7 says something which you scratch your head and go, okay. Kol hanahalim holchim el hayam. All the rivers go to the sea. V'hayam eneno malei, and the sea never gets full. All right. El makom shehanahalim holchim sham, hem shavim lalechet. And to the place where the rivers go, they come, and that's where they go back. Cycles. All the waters from everywhere, they flow into the single source. And then from the single source, it goes out to everywhere. Dramatic pause here. Why? Isn't that what I've been just saying to you about psychology? Human souls, human psychology, you and me, guys. Whether, you see the color of this skin? That means absolutely not. That means as much as the color of this shirt or the color of my t-shirt. It means nothing. Absolutely nothing. The color of my beard, nothing. All right, that's no significance other than what we ascribe the significance. We all bleed red blood, that we all know. And underlying, we are all psychologically the same. And that's where we must understand. No matter what river we're going down, all the rivers are going to the same place. You and I are rolling down the river, but we're all going to the same sea. Do you see? Ultimately, collective humanity. We all have a collective destiny, a singular past and a singular future. And it's just in the middle now that we're all thinking we're different because the different paths we're taking to get from point A to point C. And that is where our illusions come from, by thinking that these differences are real, when most certainly they're not. That is the profound thing. This is one of the greatest lessons of our Torah. And modern science is picking up by understanding the singularity of the universe. And other spiritual paths throughout the world have always spoken about when it talks about everything being one in the whole. Gee whiz, that's what Torah has always said, right? We say that Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, which is the ultimate reality of existence, Had, is one. And one, it doesn't mean a whole bunch of different parts glued together. No, it means everything is a singularity. If you look at all the rivers, you look at all the streams, and you look at all the oceans and all the seas, etc., what are they all? Water. And water is water is water. H2O, as we call it, right? Two molecules of hydrogen and one of oxygen. Oxygen has 8 and hydrogen is 1, so you got 2 plus 8 is 10. There's your 10 sephirot, right, in water. Mayim. Mem, Yud, Mem. The numerical value is 90. Add 1 for the word itself, 91. You have the numerical value of Yud, Ke, Vav, Ke, and Adonai, the inner and outer expression of the divine. That in our Jewish tradition is how we talk to God, right? We call God Adonai, numerical value 65, but we always focus on Yud, Ke, Vav, Ke, the inner essence, numerical value 26. Add them up, 91. Mayim plus 1, water plus 1. So this, my friends, this is what it's all about, understanding that which unites us. Yeah, we all have differences of opinion, difference of agreement, blah, 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 but everything goes back to the source. Solomon saw this and therefore concluded, what are we arguing about? What is there to really fight about? Ultimately, Solomon was the wisest psychologist of them all. He understood the human psyche. And he continues and he says, verse 8, Kol hadavarim yigeem, right? Lo yachol ish ledaber, right? All things are wearisome, right? They're tiring. And no one can really speak about it. We can talk and we can argue and we can fight and we can discuss and we can speculate. There will never be an end. There will always be, there's an old Jewish joke. If you have one thing, you have 2 different ways of viewing it, 3 different ways of viewing it. All right? And that's always the truth. There is an interesting statement that was made in the science fiction television program Babylon 5, which had this fictional race of ancient ones called the Vorlons, who had an old saying that truth is a 3-edged sword. Nobody knows anything about swords with 3 edges. And the Vorlon saying is, there is your side of the truth, the other side of the truth, and then the truth in the middle. And that's actually a very Kabbalistic teaching. The guy who wrote this was, what was it, J. Michael Stravinsky, I think was his name. Brilliant writer. The show is very, very deep. But in Kabbalah, of course, we speak of the right and the left and the center columns. What the Greeks would call the thesis, the antithesis, and the synthesis. We call the right column, center column, right column, left column, center column. That's where we're at today. If you look at our society today, rather than thinking that all the rivers are flowing into the sea, everybody wants to separate everything, go the opposite direction. Opposite direction of nature itself. Because let me tell you something. As important as you think these issues are today is going to pass, and so will tomorrow. A generation will go by, and so will the next and the next. And you will have a generation which will swing one way, and then it's going to swing the other way. And nature and life is going to follow its course, no matter what you and I as individuals think or want or say, because there is a greater collective consciousness which is guiding everything like an operatic movement of ballet. There is like Tai Chi movement. Everything is going with the natural flow according to a higher principle. You can ask me to explain it to you? Good luck. Why? Continuing. What does the verse say? Lo tisba ein lirot velo timele ozen mishmoa. All right? The eye will never be satisfied from seeing, nor will the ear be filled from hearing. In other words, I can show you everything in the world. I can prove to you whatever position it is I want to prove to you. And you darn well know you're not going to listen. I can show you, you're not going to see. I can teach you and you're not going to listen. Because Psychologically speaking, there must be a psychological ability of openness for one to receive. What do we call that reception? Kabbalah. And no one today wants to be a Kabbalist, a receiver, because they want to tell you. They want to make sure you believe like them. They want to tear apart all the unities and said, all unity can exist, must exist, as long as it's in my image and not yours. That, of course, is the voice of disunity, conflict, chaos. Mind you, destruction, the opposite of nature itself. Don't go there. Don't follow this path. Verse 9 is wise words for us, and I read it to you. Mashahaya hu sheyeh. That which was, again will be. Umashena'aseh hu sheyeh. That which was once done, that is what will be done. That's so true. Psychologically speaking, we all go around in cycles. It doesn't matter what toys we're playing with. It doesn't matter what culture we are involved in. It doesn't matter if today here at the beginning of the 21st century we are Western culture, or 1,000 years ago in Islamic or Christian culture, or 1,000 years before that in Persian or Roman culture, or 1,000 years before that in the days of King David or King Solomon. Yeah, my years might be a couple off there or there, but who cares? Understand, all the outsides change, but the insides don't. And that is what you must reflect upon within yourselves as individuals, to recognize the ultimate unity that we all share, regardless of any differences externally, is the identity of the human soul. Yeah, oh, I know people like that. I don't believe in soul because I'm an atheist. Whatever you want, you be whatever you want. I don't care. Because you're still part of the great never-ending story of the universe, whether you like it or not. No, I'm not. I'm separate. I'm this, I'm that. Yeah. You want to separate yourself from nature? I got an idea. Hold your breath. Let's see how you can get along without the natural function of breathing. Right? You're going to realize very fast just how much of a natural being you are. We're all going to the same sea. And no matter what you want to argue and fight and challenge, nothing is going to change that. So why look at those things which divide as opposed to look at those things which unite? The wise words that we're going to conclude here, and I'll share with you a big secret about them in just a second. Ein kol chadash tachat hashemesh. There is nothing new under the sun. All right? Nothing new under the sun. The astrologers go very deep into understanding what it means under the sun, astrological sign, but also in archetypal metaphors as from the Kabbalah. The sun also is the significance of a state of consciousness. And the Kabbalists reveal something very profound. Above the sun, there are new things all the time. As we say, HaMechadesh b'tuvo b'kol yom ma'aseh bereshit. God in his goodness renews every day something new. All right? The act of creation. So how can we have something new and not have something new? In the continuing cycle of how this universe is supposed to operate, things are going to go in accordance to its plan. That is what we refer to as nature, and the name of God referring in nature is Elohim, the natural order. And above and beyond that, above the Tiferet, where there is new, that is what we call the name Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, the universal constant, the ultimate absolute reality. In that there is always newness, simply because it doesn't go in cycles. It goes in pulses. So you know how we learn now with light? Light goes in waves, and then it goes in particles. Boom, 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 boom. That is an excellent metaphor, and very well might be the ultimate reality of the presence of God in our existence. Two levels. That which is the constant, which will never change, we got to accept it, but yet we can draw down from above that which is deeper and greater and ascend through that path to recognize the ultimate truth, as did Solomon thousands of years ago, as do many people to this day, including even great psychiatrists like Carl Jung. We can do this, guys. Recognize the unity which binds us and unites us, and truly, truly recognize unity. What greater message is there than that? I'll see you all next class. Take care.